Hello and welcome to the podcast, We Are Selling. In the last few months, we've covered some great information and everyone's now responding to this one tip at a time. And last week, we discussed the auction process and sticking to the game plan. Tom gave us some great information about doubling down on auctions and using that as a method. And we had a lot of questions come in about that, and we're going to do a continuation on that particular tip, as there's one more part to that program that could really assist you with your pricing model in the marketplace. But he joins me again, Mr. Tom Panos. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Lee. Thanks for having me back.
Tom, last week caused a stir as we talked about doubling down on auctions and using that as your method. That sparked another great conversation. Auction is a great way of pricing a property. And pre this time, everyone was like, if it doesn't sell at auction, it failed. It's got nothing to do with that. When we say to an owner, would you like to sell the property with a ceiling price or a non-ceiling price? And the owner says, well, how does that work? Well, by using the auction method, we don't have a pricing in the way. The purchaser gets to engage with us and tell us what they feel they would pay based on this time in the marketplace. And then on the auction day, if it sells, it's a bonus. But quite often in the current market, it's not actually on the day it's selling, it's after that. But we're using auction as the pricing model to find out the truth of what the property is actually worth. Tom, this is a great and different conversation we can now have with the consumer, saying we're just using auction to help price the property because we wouldn't want to undersell the asset. What's your thoughts?
I think that's a great idea. And the reason why is that often in a changing market, price actually becomes the blockage of getting a property sold. In fact, if you go out there into the marketplace with the vendor's price in a changing market, you're going to find that you're not going to get a lot of emotional commitment from buyers. I actually say to agents, what you should be saying to them is, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, there are two prices. There's the vendor price and there's the buyer excite price. What I want to do is go out there prospecting for the buyer excite price, because we know that people buy with their heart but filter with their brain. We need to go down that exercise of getting the right filtered price from the market, because once we do that and we get people inside your home, you've got such a beautiful home that I really think we're going to get a few people that are going to use competition, and competition wins Wimbledon, and competition is going to get you top dollar in real estate. So what we need to do is to make sure that we get the right guide on price. Let's go out into the market and see what they say. And I think, Lee, it solves a lot of problems, because the other option is you go out there, Lee, with the vendor price out into the market. And look, whether we like it or not, every vendor thinks their home's worth more than what it generally is. Every vendor thinks they've got the smartest and best looking kid in the community. We get all of that. We understand the emotional involvement people have with their assets and their family. So, Lee, what we want to do is eliminate that issue where people don't filter that property because they're not happy with the guide that's been using. And that's one of the beautiful things about the auction scenario.
How powerful. And when we talk about the vendor's price, you may as well put on the signboard, stay out, keep out, because you're saying I don't want to allow anybody in. And this is a bizarre conversation, and it's not a script or dialogue. But for our agents listening, there is a very important concept about vendor management with an auction that's important. And you've got to find your own words to say it. But if you were my owner, Tom, and I said, Tom, I can understand how you feel about wanting to set that price because you feel you're protecting yourself and not giving the property away. But I'd like to share with you that if we go to auction, no one can beat you, Tom, because if you say no, that makes you the highest bidder every time. So no matter what offer I bring to you from the marketplace, which will, the market finds its own level, I can put that forward to you and you say no, Tom, the property's still yours, you're the highest bidder, because you're outbidding the highest bid by not releasing the asset. So no one can take this property away from you. No one can, when people say, I don't want to give it away, you never give it away. You can only release it. But I must share with you that when you do buy it back above the highest offer that I've got, would you have paid that to be here again when you've already had your time here and you're moving on? So sometimes it's not about the price. It's, are you ready to release the asset onto somebody else? But let me find who'll pay more than you. And if I can't find somebody who's going to pay more than you say no. And Tom, it's all yours. You get to stay here. And out of dialogue, but using that concept, Tom, makes them understand that they do have the power, because they think if they, let people in at less than what they're thinking, that they're going to have to give it away, and they don't. They can always say no and remain the owner.
Well said, Lee. Well said. It was a light bulb moment for me, Lee. Many years ago, a property went to auction and it sold for, I think, 50K over the reserve. And I remember saying goodbye to the owners and about to hop in my car. And I said to the owners, "You guys happy?" And she said to me, this was in Newtown, she said to me, "Oh, very happy." She goes, "Thank God we ended up doing the auction. Otherwise, we would have sold our home for $50,000 less." And I'll never, ever forget it. Every time a home sells over reserve, the opposite could have been you would have undersold your property by 50 grand, because most likely that reserve would have been the number that they were chasing,
Tom, incredible information. More than one tip in today's show. Thanks again for joining us on We Are Selling.
Thank you, Lee.